Welcome again. This podcast is about how our body controls sugar level, and if it can't, what may happen to our body as a consequence. So we'll have controlling blood sugar. Underline. Lovely. Now this is a classic example of a negative feedback loop. Now the pancreas is always detecting how much sugar is in the blood. So let's start at a normal level of glucose. So that's when it's happy. So let's increase that glucose. So let's say we've eaten a Mars bar or had a meal. And we do something like this. We've got an increase in glucose. That is detected by the pancreas. That will then, my eyes are shocking, I do apologise, release, increase insulin. So we release insulin. So what does insulin do? Insulin tells the liver to store the glucose. So the liver stores glucose as glycogen. Glycogen. Let's move that over so you can see it a bit. Let's just move that up. Sorry. There we go. And then we are back to normal. Normal again. So, too much glucose after a meal, detected by the pancreas. Pancreas secretes insulin. Insulin tells the liver to store this glucose as glycogen back to normal. And if we're down on glucose, we can just release that glycogen again. So let's say we go the opposite way. And we have a reduced level of glucose. Now this could be through a period of fasting, or exercise, where our glucose levels are low. Again, detected by the pancreas. Detected by the pancreas. And this time it releases a different hormone. And this hormone is called glucagon. Glucagon. Just as it says. And this will tell the liver, again, that same organ involved, listen, we're running low on glucose, can you break down some of the glycogen and give us some glucose? So it will break down glycogen that's stored into glucose. And that glucose will go into the blood. And we are back to normal. So the glucose go back into the blood, increasing the level because we're at a shortage here. Increase the level. We're back to normal. And this is an example of a negative feedback loop. So the pancreas will be constantly detecting the blood sugar glucose. However, if there is a failing of one of these processes, then a person may succumb to a disease called diabetes. So let's get on the piece of paper. And what you need to know about diabetes are the two different types, how they are caused, and the treatment for those two different types. So here we go. Type 1 diabetes. Type 1 diabetes. And this is inherited. Not inherited, it's genetic. Or yes, it's genetic. Now, someone could develop this in later life. It's out of the person's control, basically, is what I mean by genetic. And the problem with type 1 diabetics is they produce no insulin. So how do we solve that? Well, we solve that by those diabetics injecting insulin into subcutaneous fat. Subcutaneous fat beneath the skin. They also may exercise more depending on their... We're constantly monitoring this externally, and diet control. That's how they will control their diabetes. And lastly then is type 2. Now this is a direct consequence, so why the first one was genetic, type 1, type 2 is a direct consequence of obesity usually. What is obesity, are you asking? Well, obesity is a BMI greater than 30. And then you are clinically obese, and then you have a higher chance of having type 2 diabetes. So what is going on? It's when your receptors become desensitized to insulin. So the insulin's still there, but because you've excuse me while I close that down. Because you've been using it so much, because there's so much sugar in your blood, because your diet is a poor one, then your receptors become desensitized, and the insulin cannot do its job anymore. It cannot control blood sugar. So what you have to do is you have to lose weight, basically. Lose weight. How do you lose weight? Well, you control your diet and you exercise more. Exercise more. And that is how that is really controlled. So type 2, type 1, how they're both controlled. And that is it for blood sugar. Thank you very much. I'll have a go at the question now, and I'll get on with answering it and see if our answers marry up. Cheers. Bye-bye.